Hi guys, welcome to M&D Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. We're going to be looking at development of key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are so important in every organization, whether it's just a business corporate, whether it's an NGO, or whether it's government. These indicators are very important. So I want to talk about how we can develop them, because this is actually what M&E is all about, because we as professionals need to be tracking performance. Okay, so for those of you who are here for the very first time, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for a very long time, over 10 years now. I'm specialized in M&E and project management, okay? So I want you to feel at home, because this is where you get all the information related to monitoring and evaluation. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do well to subscribe to this channel before you leave. I have this video which is running, this course which is running on, what is this place called again? Arbitron, yes, Arbitron, yeah. So the link is in the description below. So if you want to get this course, how to set up a monitoring and evaluation system step by step, click the link in the description below to access this course. Okay, now there's something I want to talk about. I want to remind you, my friends, that it's really important that you watch this video until the end if you want to master the technique of developing key performance indicators, because if you don't watch it until the end, you may miss some very important points. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get started. Okay, so now, what is a key performance indicator? Well, a key performance indicator is a variable, okay? It can either go positive or negative, and that is why, if you've noticed in many of these projects, let's say you have an indicator level of income. That income can either be high level income or low level income. So this is basically a variable. A key performance indicator is a variable that changes, okay, depending on different circumstances. But what is important for us as professionals is that these key performance indicators help us measure whether we have achieved our targets or not. Now, there are certain things I want to emphasize here. You cannot run a project without key performance indicators. Okay, so if you are running a project right now and it doesn't have indicators in it, please, you need to go back to the drawing board, okay? Because every project must have a set of indicators, and it's not just limited to a project. If you notice, many of these businesses which are running all over the world, including multi-million businesses like Microsoft, I want to believe that a big company like that has a strategic plan, and what is in their strategic plan is basically the targets that they want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, okay? So for them to know whether they are really achieving their targets, they are constantly monitoring their performance, and they are using indicators to do that. So you need to have indicators. Now, the KPIs can be used for measuring performance of employees. Okay, so if you have, which most organizations do, they have a number of employees, you can track performance based on whether the employees you have are achieving their targets. But most importantly, the KPIs measure whether indeed the activities of a project are really being fulfilled, and this ultimately means that management can make better informed decisions. Okay, so this I've already emphasized. Now, there are different levels of KPIs, but all of them are very important. That's one thing I need to emphasize. So you've got the high level indicators, which are the impact indicators, the long term indicators. So for example, if you have a goal, normally a goal is a high level indicator of where you want to be in the next 5 years. Okay, so usually we'll say at that level, those are impact indicators. But if you're setting yourself a goal, or it's not a goal in this case, it could be a vision that you want to achieve something in the next 3 years, that is where now you have the outcome indicators, because the outcome indicators are usually, they are in between the short to medium term results that you want to see. Then you've got the lower level indicators, which are the outputs, which are indicators that you can track on a monthly or quarterly basis or even a yearly basis. So this is what I wanted to talk about. This is what I was actually what I was talking about a few seconds ago. The lowest level indicators are the indicators you use, are the variables you use usually when you're tracking performance, especially as regards to the processes in your organization. So essentially you are essentially just looking at your activities. Are people doing the activities that you originally had set? And if they are, those activities are feeding onto the higher level, the strategic level. So these, whether it's the lowest level or the highest level, all these indicators are so important because it will give you a feel of whether you are achieving your targets. And of interest, our targets are usually at high level. We want to see an overall change, but if we are not seeing it, then we'll go down here to ask ourselves why, what went wrong at the operational stage. Okay, there is a step-by-step process of developing an indicator. So now I just gave you a brief background of what indicators are, but there's really a step-by-step process which you need to follow. Okay, now I'm going to run you through this process, and please pay attention as I am explaining this. But before we go any further, of course, there's this course I'm running, so please use the link in the description to access it because it's a very good course. Now let's get back to business. Now the step-by-step process of developing a key performance indicator is number one. Step one, identify what you want to measure. So for example, let's say you are running a project, and that project has been designed to reduce poverty levels in a certain community. So ultimately, you want to know whether indeed so your project is making a difference. That is essentially what you want to know. So the first thing you need to identify what is to be measured. So what you've identified is you want to know the poverty levels in a certain community. So now in identifying, it's not just about, you just go straight, you just jump into it and it ends there, but you need to do a bit of some reading. So review your project document, review the objectives, concepts, be clear about what type of change you want to see. Clarify whether the outcome sought is an absolute change or relative change or no change. Okay, so these are just this is just additional information, but essentially it all comes down to what you plan to measure. Okay, so the next step is develop a list of possible indicators. So this is where now it gets a bit more exciting. The first thing you need to do, and also I need to mention that when you're developing indicators, don't do it alone. The organization you may be working for should have a lot of people seated in those offices who you can tap into knowledge. You can tap knowledge from them. So you can sit them down, all of you, brainstorm on what kind of indicators you think are appropriate for what you want to measure. So now let's get back to the poverty example. You have to identify, like for example, you've said that you want to measure the percentage of people living in poverty. But the question is, what is poverty? Okay, because your project might have its own definition, the UN has its definition, but you need to come up with a definition that even as you are collecting this data, it makes a lot of sense. So for example, if you are saying that poverty is the percentage of people living on less than $1 a day, you put that down as a possible indicator. Or you can add another indicator, a trial indicator, and say poverty is actually if somebody cannot eat 3 meals a day. You add it there as a possible trial indicator. You do a brainstorming session, and then you say, okay, looking at all this list of indicators, I think these are the possible indicators we can use to measure poverty. So now the next step is, when you've listed your trial indicators, now mind you, I want to mention that I've given you a very easy example, poverty, because I mean that's an easy indicator to formulate, but there are indicators which could be quite complicated sometimes. So this process you find actually comes in handy. So step 3, you need to assess each indicator. So you look at the percentage of people living on less than $1 a day. You do a brainstorming session, you assess it as a team, and ask yourselves whether this is an indicator which you can collect. All right, is it something you can use? If you look at people eating 3 meals a day, or you ask yourselves, is this an indicator which we can use to measure poverty? Now in the brainstorming session, you might find people even saying that actually when you look at 3 meals a day, what do we mean? Are we talking about the nutritional the nutritional content in these meals? What kind of levels of nutrition are we looking for in these meals? Because somebody can tell you they eat 3 meals a day, but it's only a slice of bread a day and they call that a meal. I'm sure you get what I'm saying. So that's where the brainstorming session comes in, and you reach an agreement and you say, okay, I don't think 3 meals a day may be a realistic or a true reflection of poverty. Let's stick to the people living on less than $1 a day. So you eliminate the 3 meals a day indicator. So I've touched a bit on this. You select the best indicator. So let's say you've got 2 trial indicators, and you looked at 3 meals a day as being a possible indicator to measure poverty. Then you've got the percentage of people living on less than $1 a day. So you select the best. Between these two, which is the best? And definitely it is the percentage of people living on less than $1 a day, because it's easier to get somebody to tell you how much money they earn in a month, and then you can spread that amount into 30 days, and you get whether they are actually living on less than $1 or more than $1 a day. But the problem with 3 meals, if you are using the indicator to do with how many meals a day do you have, if you have less than 3 meals, the problem is that it's difficult sometimes to measure the nutritional content, because people will tell you, okay, we do have 3 meals a day, but you don't really know how the content of those meals are. So that's why probably the first one would be the best. Okay, so that's where we end. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. You can write to me on coachalexander23@yahoo.com. What I was showing you was a simplified approach to the development of indicators. This is just one method, but there's another method which we use to develop indicators, which I'll talk about in the weeks to come. But for now, please take care until we meet again. See you on the other side. Bye.